Hey, greetings from the Gateway, a show all about St. Louis, coming up next. Welcome to Garden Style, a show about how to grow, how to cook, and how to design your world. Now today we're starting off here in St. Louis, a spectacular city. You can't believe all the things we're going to cover in today's show. We'll check out some cool features of the city garden. Then it's into the kitchen for some tasty Swiss chard. And later, I'll show you some fantastic design features of a piece of St. Louis history. There's a lot to see and experience here in St. Louis, and we'll get right to it just after the break. What better place to start than here? This is City Garden. This is a 3-acre oasis carved out of this very urban landscape. What I love about it is that there are these marvelous sculptures around, actually 24 of them by internationally renowned sculptors. This one by Vinay serves as a beautiful frame the view approach to that cascade or waterfall behind. This is a beautiful piece of abstract sculpture with this gorgeous bronze finish. Now, if you're into something a little more realistic, you might want to look at Eros Bound, this gigantic head, very realistic. I think it's really stunning. If you look at the plants around here, it's really interesting what they've done. All of the trees here are native Missouri trees. There are 20 of them except for one, the ginkgo, but it's believed that the ginkgo actually lived in this region millions and millions of years ago because they've actually found fossils of the leaves here. Now, somewhere around this garden is Sue Charis, who is the head gardener who can give us more insight into this beautiful and fascinating place.
They designed it to mimic flying in a plane over the Mississippi Delta.
Oh, I see.
So if you look up high, this is all the cliffs along the river. It's natural limestone that was cut out, and then it goes down into the plains, and so there is the actual rain gardens that run through the whole center of it.
Right, you get the grasses and the native prairie plants.
Then it runs over to a meandering wall which mimics the river. It's an art park, but also they wanted to have people be able to come down here and see plants that were great ones to grow locally.
With 24 different sculptures here, they range from abstract to very realistic pieces. Do you have a favorite?
I do. It's called The Bird. I got to hear the story about the lady who developed it, and she was, as a child, she was in England and went to the sideshows.
Yeah.
And if you look at the piece of art, you can tell it's English, and it's an unusual piece.
All right.
So it's
very good.
Pretty, yeah.
I'll have to take a look at that.
And if you come down here in the summertime, there's hundreds of people. They like to sit with their feet in the water, and they like to run through the fountains.
Oh, it's fabulous.
It's just packed with people. Everybody comes out of these buildings on their lunch hour. This won the Amanda Burden Award last year. It's an award given to urban gardens And the main goal is an urban garden that contributes to the city the most. And it was up against some beautiful gardens. When I saw them online, I thought, oh no, wax the granite. We had everything perfect.
Put some polish on the proverbial apple, huh?
We did, and it won. And
congratulations.
Yeah, so we were very happy about that.
It's very inspiring.
Thank you.
Keep up the great work.
Oh, thank you.
And thanks for spending time with us today, Sue.
Oh, great to see you.
Yeah, thank you. Coming up after the break, we'll see what's brewing, so stick around. I'm having the best time here at Shapley's Bottle Works. I mean, it's a brewery, it's a restaurant, and they've got this garden out here, and we've been munching around in the garden all day long, and I've come in with Matt, and he collected a big bundle, about 2 pounds of chard, and he's put it together St. Louis style, and here it comes.
Oh,
what you got here, bud?
Can't wait for you to try this. Some of the rainbow chard from the garden.
Yeah, I know. I saw you cut it.
You got it paired with some local bacon, some local northern Missouri pecans, and
Look
golden
at that.
raisins.
It's beautiful.
Some more raisins and nuts on there.
Oh, wow. This is like a meal in itself.
Oh, it's great and it's so easy. Just started off on like medium to high heat.
Right.
A couple tablespoons of oil. Here we have about three slices of diced bacon. 1 small finely chopped onion. 3 to 4 cloves of fresh garlic. Once the bacon got crispy, you know, we just add all of the chard rough chopped.
And you just chop up the stems and the leaves.
And you can cook it all down.
2 pounds of chard looks like a lot, but it really reduces.
Yeah, it's a great size for almost 2 people, you know.
Yeah.
This wilts down really well.
Right.
It's about 2 cups of vegetable broth.
So then you add the pecans and raisins?
Yeah, the pecans are toasted. The raisins go in.
Okay, toasted pecans, that's good. So that's why these are so crispy.
Yeah, they stay crunchy and give a great texture.
Right, yeah, you do have a great texture.
And the raisins went in before the pecans too, and they soak up all the liquid, you know, the great earthiness, sweetness, flavor of the chard.
I would never thought of putting the raisins in here, golden raisins. Then you add a little salt at the end.
Not much salt though, because the bacon's super salty already.
Right.
But a teaspoon of kosher salt, teaspoon of fresh cracked pepper, cayenne pepper, just about a dash of it. A dash of some fresh ground nutmeg. Just let it simmer. About a cup of chopped pecans that have been toasted. You know, salty, sweet, smoky.
Right, man, this is so good. I am gonna make this. This is a perfect winter side dish. Thank you so much. Dan, this place is awesome. I can't believe how big it is. I mean, so I've eaten in the restaurant, I've seen the garden, and now I'm in the brewery.
Right.
What came first?
The brewery.
The brewery came first.
The brewery drives everything. Essentially, we're a brewer, and everything else kind of flows from that.
How did you get interested in brewing beer? Did you start this in your own backyard?
I started out as a home brewer in college,
Oh, yeah?
and ended up working for a brewery in England for a decade.
Did you really?
Yeah.
And it's grown into this?
It's grown into this. This is a very small brewery by brewing standards.
Well, you know, it doesn't look like a very small brewery to me.
Yeah, it's a small brewery. Let's head up to the brew deck, and we'll see where the magic's made.
Okay, let's do it. Looks like the Enterprise. That's Captain Kirk there.
Well, it's a small brewery.
Mission control.
And Kyle is managing the process here. We make upwards of 50 different beer styles a year.
50.
Well, a lot of guys don't realize
50.
how much variety there is in beer compared, say, to wine. I mean, with wine, you've got white and you got red, so you don't have a ton of variety. With beer, you've got a much broader spectrum, and that comes down to the fact that we make beer from grain. We start with grain as opposed to grape.
And it's not always barley.
No, it can be wheat.
Right.
Those two are the primary grains in brewing.
Sure.
But what you can do with those grains is you can roast them before we add them. And that's what gives beer its caramel color or its black color in a stout or a dark lager. So what we do is we essentially start with grain and we hydrate it, meaning we mix it with water, just like you would do making a bowl of oatmeal.
Right, plump it up.
Plump it up, hydrate it, fill it full of water.
Yeah.
The hard part of brewing is that we take an agricultural product, grain, just like you do with wine, and we have to convert the starch in the grain to sugar.
So what's going on in these vats here?
In this vessel here, we have grain coming down from above.
Oh, I see up here, right.
On the other side of the brewery, we've milled the grain. And then basically right here is where it's going to mix as it goes into this vessel.
Yeah.
If I open this, this will be full of steam.
Right.
But imagine a giant bowl of oatmeal.
Yeah, sure.
It's just barley meal.
Right.
And it tastes a little bit like grape nuts, because grape nuts as a cereal, that's barley. The next step of the process is we have to boil the sugar liquid. Two reasons for boiling it. We want to sterilize it because we're going to add a pure culture strain of yeast. We don't want any bacteria or wild yeast. The other key part of boiling, though, is we're going to add the spice. And the main spice in beer is hops.
Right.
And what hops do is make the beer bitter. They lower the pH of it and therefore protect it long-term from other infection.
When I think of beer, I always think of hops.
Right, and that is the traditional spice.
I love growing hops. I mean, they're a beautiful garden plant. But what other things would you add to a beer?
If we're making a pumpkin beer, we'll add cinnamon or nutmeg or clove.
Okay, yeah.
We make a Christmas ale where we actually add juniper berries.
You're kidding.
Nope.
That's wild.
So really what's going on in the beer world today is we're broadening what is traditional.
Yeah, would you use raspberries?
We use raspberries, but again, that's a...
I just made that up.
But that's a sugar source.
You do use them though.
We do use them, but we wouldn't add them at this point. We'll add them at the next point, and I'll show that to you.
Let's go.
All right. Here we're watching the fermentations. The conical shaped vessels, those are the fermenters. Okay. Because what happens is that as the yeast ferments, it rises to the top.
Right.
Then what happens is we chill the tank down and the yeast settles to the bottom.
Right.
And the reason the tank is conicaled like that is so that we can pull the yeast, crop the yeast off the bottom.
I see.
And then we can
lop it off.
Take it off the fermenting beer, and then we can pitch that yeast into the next vessel.
I see.
So you'll use the yeast a number of generations.
Excellent.
Before you grow a new...
Until it's totally exhausted.
Exactly. Right. And so once the beer's finished fermenting and conditioning and we've pulled the yeast off, then we may have to filter the beer further to remove any remaining yeast. That's the machine you hear in the background.
I do hear it.
You hear it. That's the centrifuge in the background. Exactly. It's spinning.
Yeah.
We're pulling the rest of the yeast off.
Right.
Then we go into one of the dish bottom tanks. You see one like this tank here.
Right. Yep. It's not conical.
Exactly. Those are packaging tanks. We're going to check the carbonation Once the carbonation is checked, then we're ready to go. The more sugar available for fermentation, the higher the alcohol, the more CO2.
There we go. I did remember something from chemistry.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no correlation between color and strength in beer. So you can have a very dark colored beer that's very low in alcohol.
Right.
Or a very light colored beer that's very high in
Yeah.
alcohol. There's no correlation between color and strength.
Yeah.
In fact, many, many darker beers.
Well, when they call it a stout, you just figure it's stronger.
It's stout in color.
Yeah, in color only.
And flavor.
Wow. Okay,
Yep.
That's very good. Thank you so much. This
No,
is
it's a pleasure.
fascinating. Yeah,
All
just
right.
keep up your great work.
Yep.
I love this.
That's how we make beer.
Local brewery.
Local brewery.
Right here. When we return, we'll visit historic Union Station. Now, if you look at this monster of a building behind me, you might think I'm somewhere in Europe, maybe even France. Well, you're close. This is Union Station in St. Louis, and it was modeled after the Carcassonne, a medieval walled city in southern France. But it was built in 1894 at the cost of $6.5 million. This beautiful edifice and its interior was restored in the mid-80s at the tune of $150 million. Now think about this. It took 2 years to build it originally, and it took 2 years to restore it. You see, Theodore Link was the architect. He had spent time in France. He was trying to make the connection between St. Louis's association with the French. The French actually founded St. Louis back in the mid-18th century and Having spent time in France, why not build a French castle? If you think it looks like a castle on the outside, come on inside and let me show you the glories of the interior. Now just take a look at this great hall, 10,000 square feet, and this beautiful barrel vaulted ceiling that goes 65 feet in the air over 3 stories high. You see, what Link wanted to do was to celebrate the idea that St. Louis was indeed the gateway to the West. In 1894, what you saw here was a celebration in all of these beautiful materials of American arts and crafts and technology. Link carried out his Romanesque revival motif at every turn. You see it in clustered columns and the arches and many of the details that you see along the walls and at each end of this great hall. On this end, for instance, there are 7 maidens with their arms up with torches as if to guide the trains into the station. The station cover itself accommodated 42 tracks, 42 trains at once coming and going from this place. It was really quite remarkable. It's debated whether the architect Link was a religious man or just superstitious, because there were several things that he did in the design of this building that would lead you to believe that. For instance, he grouped things in numbers of 7, like 7 arches, 7 maidens, and he believed that only a good soul could pass through an arch. And the only way to come and go through this building is through an arch. He also must have had a sense of humor, because if you look at the stained glass window, which is over the grand entrance into the Great Hall here, what you see is an allegorical stained glass window. In the center, you see a female figure representing St. Louis with a rather smug look on her face, and the state capitol just behind her. To the right is New York, represented as a woman figure in green, with a rather envious sort of look on her as she looks towards St. Louis. And to the left, well, you see San Francisco with an equally envious look looking toward St. Louis. So the idea was St. Louis was the biggest, the greatest, and the best, and certainly the gateway to the West. I just marvel at the layers of artistry and craftsmanship in here. Everything from the marble tiles, these beautiful glazed tiles, mosaics, the stonework you see here, the plaster work above with botanical motifs using papyrus and acanthus, and even the scagliola here, which is a technique that's applied to concrete. Behind this is concrete, and the scagliola is simply a faux finish to resemble marble. Here is marble, true marble, and here is the pretender, beautifully done. And if you ask me, to me, the faux finish is actually more beautiful than the true marble itself. And then if you look above here, it looks like acres and acres of stenciling in this space. It's truly remarkable. You know, I've been to St. Louis many times, and I've driven by Union Station, and I've marveled at the exterior, but this is the first time I've taken the time to come in and just see this beautifully adorned space, and I'm so glad I did. The next time you're in St. Louis, check it out. It's well worth it. More garden style coming up after the break. Well, I hope you've enjoyed exploring St. Louis as much as I have. It's really a great city, and I hope you can get here just as soon as you can. There's so much to see. And I hope that you've seen some things here that will help you grow, cook, and design your world. Until next time, for Garden Style, I'm Alan Smith.